entrepreneur, internet, public policies, international environment for more than 15 years. So now, Sergio, thank you for organizing this table, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Obama, my friend. This is a very, I'm very proud now to host and to connect all these people from so many different countries and regions. This is a great opportunity for me. I have to say this. It is also a great moment for the Berkeley Global Society, where we have representatives of several countries that can speak of the impact and the meanings of the telecommunications, regulatory and policy agendas for their countries, the impact that these things have in the region, and all of the relevant interests that it also brings to the global community. So we're very lucky today to host this group of specialists. I have to thank two people in particular, Sebastian Leighton and Andres and Carlos Perez Shaw from Mexico, who connected us to Jacqueline and Andres in Chile and Mexico. This is all about, this is what this BGS group is about: networking and supporting others and connecting people with ideas to share. So today we have this, we'll be talking about several topics related to the telecommunications agenda of the Latin American region. Now we will be covering topics related to 5G. We have people speaking of mobility. Many will be talking about broadband connectivity, and privacy and security matters will also be present. These are very prominent topics of everyone's agenda. So today, without further ado, I will introduce we'll introduce the short biography of our speakers. They are all very, they have been working in the field for several years and have all very solid experience in academic experience, and also in their professionals as well. So I'll be doing this in alphabetical order, but then we will rearrange it to introduce this panel with Carlos Baigorri from Anatel. Alejandro Adamovich is from Argentina, the Regional Strategy and Technology Director for GSMA Latin America. Alejandro has a degree in electronic engineering from the National Technological University and a master's in business administration from University of SEMA. He's also a graduate, postgraduate. He holds postgraduate qualifications in marketing from our UC Berkeley. His responsibilities at GSMA include strategic engagement with more than 80 members and companies from the digital ecosystem in the region, and new technologies and digital services. He has extensive experience in the field of ICT, has worked before with Terra Argentina, Telef, he's been a wholesale business and the strategy VP. He's been with NAC as well, and the Telefonica Group. Andres Rodriguez from Chile is a senior associate of the Telecommunications, Media, Information Technology, and Data Protection Group at Barros Errázuriz. Andres focuses his practice in all matters related to the telecommunications and technology industries. He has been recognized as an associate watch for the TMT category by the Chambers Latin America 2021. He holds an LLM from UCL in the UK, and also a master's in Chile. Carlos Baigorri is an economist. He holds a PhD in economics from the Universidade Católica de Brasília. He's also he has been with the telecommunications regulator for some 15 years, I guess, or so. He has held different positions in the regulator, and is now, as of, I guess, a couple of weeks, the incoming commissioner for the agency. Has extensive experience in the field, has written and published articles and books in the fields of economics and telecommunications and technology. Jacqueline Sodi is a partner and senior counselor at Buffet Sodi Abogados in Mexico. She holds a master's degree in telecommunications in the telecom legal framework. She practices and focuses in global disputes and has experiences in telecommunications and antitrust practices at the Federal Telecommunications Institute and the Federal Antitrust Commission as a deputy director. Julie, my friend, my colleague from UC Berkeley, we studied together years ago, and she's currently the PayU's regional privacy officer for LATAM. This is also a very new position for her. I'm very proud for her. She has more than 10 years of experience in IP, data protection, technology, and telecommunications law. She's a graduate from University de los Andes in Colombia, and she holds an LLM at UC Berkeley. She comes as well from a new MPA, Masters of Public Administration, Digital Technologies, and Policy from University College of London. She has been working with law firms and advising clients in Chile and abroad for several years. So this is our batch. It's very clear. There's a long list of longest experience of our speakers. We're very proud to host you here and very thankful for you donating your time to your audience and to the Berkeley Global Society. Without further ado, I pass it on the floor to Carlos Baigorri. Baigorri, you're the new commissioner for Anatel. Everyone wants to hear from you. Could you please share some of your visions from to the country? What is your agenda and looking like? And what about all these hot topics that we have been hearing about? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you all, BGS, for inviting me for this discussion. Thank you, Sergio. You are a great friend, and we miss you a lot here at Anatel. So basically, as you said, I was nominated as a commissioner for Anatel recently, and I don't have any specific agenda. Here at Anatel, we have institutional agenda, which is the regulatory agenda of Anatel, and my job as a commissioner will be to develop this agenda and to make all the necessary regulations here in Brazil. I think that the biggest priorities for Anatel in the coming months and years is the challenge to bring connectivity to the regions in Brazil, to the communities in Brazil that still do not have any coverage, either mobile services or broadband service, but not also bringing connectivity to those ones who do not have any. We also should increase the quality and the connectivity of the big cities and the regions that already have connectivity. In this front, I see three major goals, three major projects that Anatel must develop. The first one is, it's obvious, is the 5G auction. I was defined as the rapporteur for the 5G auction that shall happen in the beginning of 2021. There are a lot of challenges that must be addressed before we can put to the public the auction terms. We have the discussion about the band C, about the C-band usage by the satellite operators. We have discussion about how to guarantee the coexistence between the 5G systems and the broadcast satellite services here in Brazil. And also, we have all the discussion about cybersecurity that's really relevant in the context of 5G. And that's so I think that we at Anatel will have to discuss with all the stakeholders to find a clear path in which we may follow. In my opinion, if we try to follow in a path that's not clear for all stakeholders, we may be assuming some risks in which the auction terms may be stopped in any court here in Brazil. On the other hand, I think that in the short term, our best shot in bringing connectivity of high throughput and low latency for the Brazilian society is regarding the usage of the 6 gigahertz frequency band. On May of this year, we at Anatel, we decided to establish that the 1200 megahertz of the 6 gigahertz band will be used for unlicensed service. So services such as Wi-Fi, we did not decide that it would be Wi-Fi 6. That's something that the industry is wishing for, but we already decided that this frequency band will be used for unlicensed service. So right now it's been discussed in the Board of Commissioners the technical conditions for the usage of the equipment in the 6 gigahertz band. And there's a lot of expectation that with that decision, Brazil may create the conditions to have the Wi-Fi 6E here in Brazil, and following the decision of the FCC that the FCC took in the US. And the other hand, and the other front in which we can bring connectivity to Brazilian society is through fixed connectivity. Because here in Brazil we have more than 2,000 municipalities that still do not have connectivity through fiber optics. So they basically have the connectivity that reaches those cities through satellite services or radio service. So the idea is to use public funds, such as the revenues that we should receive from the auction terms, and also other revenues associated with the fixed line concessions, in a way that we can bring fiber networks to those cities, enhancing the quality of broadband and mobile service and mobile broadband, fixed broadband in those localities. So I think those are the major topics for the next years. Of course, cybersecurity will be a huge topic. There's been a lot of discussion about cybersecurity and the presence of Huawei. This is a discussion that is reached the highest level of our government, and this is a decision that will be taken exclusively by the President of Brazil, Mr. Jair Bolsonaro. So we at Anatel, we are waiting for this discussion, for this decision, because this is something that will certainly affect all the modeling of the 5G auction. I think that's my general topics. Sergio, thank you.
Thank you, Baigorri. That is a very important agenda for Anatel. I thank you for opening this this big umbrella of topics that are on the table of the regulator, and also in topics that are not only being considered by the telecom regulator anymore, but now we have taken, this is the security side of 5G, is an example of the prominence and the strategic side of the telecommunications to several different sectors in the country. And in the case of 5G and security, we have been seeing many topics being discussed, not only in the presidential agenda, but these topics have also taken the public debate. So you said that there is some part of this debates are taking inside Anatel, others are taking outside of it. Could you clarify what specifically are the Anatel will be deciding? Is this a spectrum? Is this standards? What are the security aspects that are involved in the 5G debate from the regulator perspective?
Thank you, Sergio. So basically, in the cybersecurity perspective, we have different bodies of the government that are involved in this discussion. So within Anatel, we have basically two projects. The first one is, both of them, they were already put to public consultation. The first one are the technical requirements for certification of equipments from the perspective of cybersecurity. So here under the Brazilian law, any equipment to be deployed in the Brazilian networks, must be certified by Anatel. And the certification process evaluates, assesses different characteristics of those equipments. And until today, we didn't have any regulation for the certification process to be concerned with cybersecurity issues. So right now, considering all the strategical elements and the risks involved in 5G, Anatel put in public consultation and will be approved in the next months the technical requirements for the certification of equipments considering the cybersecurity perspective. So this is the first one on the technical level. Then we have a piece of regulation that's called the Cybersecurity Regulation, something like that, Regulamento de Segurança Cibernético e Comunicações de Emergência. That's basically a piece of regulation that's focused not on the vendors, but focused on the service providers. and establish a set of obligations for them, considering how they should have, how to say, policies for cybersecurity and risk assessment, considering critical infrastructures in a way to guarantee the minimum level of service for critical infrastructure here in Brazil. So we have these, both of them, they went already to public consultation, and they are to be approved their final draft. This in the technical level of Anatel. So the regulation of cybersecurity focused on service providers, and the certification process focused on vendors and on the certification process. And then we have, on the level of the government, we have from GSI, that's like the Gabinete de Segurança Institucional, a regulation, instrução normativa, that set requirements for the 5G networks consider the national security. Instrução normativa number 4. So this is another thing that we should consider when we are discussing the auction terms of the 5G. So this is a broader regulation, not from Anatel, it's not a technical regulation from telecoms, but it's a regulation from the national security perspective. And then there may be a public policy regarding cybersecurity, and as a public policy, it may come in the form of a presidential decree from the Presidencia da República. So right now we have Instrução Normativa of GSI, that's on the national security perspective, a piece of regulation and two pieces of regulation on Anatel, one from the certification process, another one from the provision of telecommunication service and guarantee of and the protection of critical infrastructure. That's all.
Carlos, very clear explanation. Thank you. I'll move on with our speakers. Alejandro from GSMA, you're from Argentina, but you also have this regional view of Latin America. Could you please take the floor?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I will share my screen now. I hope you can see that. Well, thank you for the invitation and for the introduction, Sergio. First, I would like to tell you who we are at the GSMA. Maybe some of you that are related to the industry, you know us. GSMA stands for Global Service Mobile Association. We are kind of a trade association of the mobile industry. We represent the interests of most of the operators worldwide. There are about 750 operators that are members of the GSMA. And also, we have around 300 companies from the ecosystem, ranging from vendors, suppliers, terminal manufacturers, service integrators, wholesalers. In general, all the ecosystem is member in some way of the GSMA. Today, I'm sorry, 1 second. Today, I would like to focus on first on a global landscape of the mobile industry. The mobile industry, these are figures for the end of 2019. The mobile ecosystem serves 5.2 billion accesses or connections worldwide, and we expect to serve 5.8 billion in 2025. This is about 67% of the population. This is a typical ratio we use, the typical penetration rate. Of those, the mobile internet users are 3.8 billion, which means that there is a gap between the total connections and the people that use mobile internet. We will go deeper on this when we speak about Latin America. If we look at unique connections, SIM connections, this SIM is this is what happens when you invite an engineer to join a panel. There's a lot of engineering babbling and a lot of numbers. I must warn you. Blame on Sergio. The SIM connections today are 8 billion worldwide, which is more than the total population. This is partly because in some parts of the world there are more connections than people, but also we are starting to view the phenomenon of Internet of Things. the mobile networks not only connect people, but also connect things. And this is going to be more visible in the next years. Which is something very important is the contribution to the GDP. The mobile industry contributes 4.7% of the total GDP of the world, is $4.1 trillion. And we expect this figure to grow to 4.9 in the next 5 years. The revenues of the operators, this is something important because everybody looks at the revenues, but a few people look at the investment, the capex the operators need to maintain, to keep up with the demand. It's the revenues is about slightly over $1 trillion, and the investment overall is about between 14 and 18% a year. 14 to 18% of the gross revenues. Of course, we are not talking about EBITDA or other indicators. And the global market, when we speak about public funding, the contribution of the operators to public funding is 490 billion. If we compare this to the revenues, it's huge. It's a huge contribution to public funding in terms of spectrum licenses, all kinds of fees, and also taxes. And the industry employs 16 million people all over the world. So we are a big source of high qualification employment. What about Latin America? If we translate this to our region, we can see that we serve 67% of the population has a mobile connection, which is 416, and will be 73 in the next 5 years. And the mobile internet users are well below that, 52%. Only 52% of the people access mobile internet, which is very relevant for our industry to cover that gap. The revenues are somewhere near 70 billion a year, and the industry contributes to the public funding with $38 billion a year. The contribution to the GDP is 261 billion, and we create directly and indirectly 1.7 million jobs, which is much for our industry. One of the challenges we have in LATAM, the challenge of what we call the business as usual. I mean, the industry as we know it, because later I will speak about 5G, is to break the usage barriers. As I told you, there is only 52% of the population use mobile internet, and in particular in regions like Latin America, Southeast Asia, and some parts of most of Africa, the low-income people, the first approach to the internet is through a smartphone. There's a lot of evolution on the price, positive evolution, which is negative evolution in price for the smartphone prices, but for different reasons, there's still in Latin America 42% of the population that are covered by the service, by 4G services, but they are not connected to mobile internet. This is particularly relevant in countries in Central America and some of the low-income economies in South America, like Venezuela and Paraguay. This is something that the industry has as a pending item to connect most of the people, to include them into the digital life. But I would like to talk about the future, 5G. Everybody speaks 5G. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the concept of 5G, but basically 5G is not just another speed jump from 2 to 3G, from 3G to 4G. The main innovation was speed. We had to wait until 4G to have a reasonable speed to watch videos, to train online, to educate, to share smoothly photos and videos. But 5G, of course, will bring another speed jump, will bring 10 times more speed. So with 5G, we will be able to connect to speeds that are compatible with the fiber optic speeds, like 1 gigabit per second per connection. But I find that there are the other two characteristics that are more relevant for certain applications. 5G will be also 40 times faster in its response. Response is not speed. Speed is how much bytes you can have per second. But the response is how fast is the red to respond when we give an order, when we push a button. This is particularly relevant in mission critical in certain industries. Imagine a robot that you are managing a robot doing some industrial process thousands of kilometers away. You need precision and you need timeliness. The same for the cars. If you can imagine that a car can drive by itself, and it is that technology is based on a 5G connection, we need a response that is faster than the human brain, because in the traditional way, you drive, and when you see something wrong, you put the brake. The car has to have the same or better speed of reaction. So this is very important, and also more efficient. This is particularly important for the IoT, Internet of Things. It is expected that by 2025, there will be between 25 and 30 billion things connected. So, and all of those things are unattended. Most of all those things are unattended. So it's important to have energy efficiency, because otherwise the solutions are not profitable, because if you have to go to change the battery or charge the battery every 2 days, it's impossible. So efficiency, and in particular energy efficiency, is very important for 5G to succeed. And what is the future look like? 5G is an important part, but there is also some other trends or technologies that are also important and interact with 5G. Of course, 5G will bring, as I said, speed, responsiveness, and efficiency. But once we have the data, once we have the machines connected, we need different layers of intelligence, and that's why we speak about artificial intelligence. We have the data, we need to transform this data into information and then into intelligence to take decisions and to make better processes, or if we're talking about an industry, maybe a better production process, a more efficient production process, and also Internet of Things. We need more devices connected, because at least in the developed world, most of the people are connected. Of course, as I said, we still have a gap in regions like Latin America, but we are going to see every year a growing number of things connected to the internet, and 5G will be the technology to connect them to the intelligence and to other things or humans. Will 5G replace 4G or the previous generations? The answer is not. Why? Because 4G is enough for most of the more popular applications nowadays. I said before that 5G can offer a speed of 1 gigabit per second to a customer, but believe me that you don't need that for a smartphone. because of course it's fancy to say, oh, I can download a movie in less than 1 second, but you don't watch a movie in 1 second. So it's, of course, it's nice, but that's not the main purpose of 5G, at least at the beginning. So 4G will still be dominant. This is 2025. I believe that well beyond 2030. Even though we project 1.8 billion connections in the of 5G, which is about 22% of the global connections we project for that year. And of those, 62 million will be in LATAM. Of course, Brazil and Mexico, which are the biggest markets in our region, will count for the most of these connections. And well, by the end of the presentation, I will speak about what's going on in different countries in Latin America. Let's talk business. This is all nice, this future, this better future that 5G will create is very nice. But when we speak to operators, they want to know, okay, show me the money. Where will the money come from? And the value for not only for the operators, but also for customers will come mostly from B2B applications or B2B2C application, which is that the operator will develop services for a company that will take this service and transform into a service to end customers. It's typically the connected cars. You are not going to an operator to buy a connected car. You will go to a company that will offer you a service based in technology inside the car and also in connectivity that will be provided by an operator. That's what I mean by B2B2C application. And of these applications, this world of applications will create a 700 billion market by 2030, which is 70% of the revenues as of today, which is a lot. Of course, the business as usual revenues in 2030 will be much higher, but this is about can represent up to 30 to 35 extra revenues for the operators and for companies that will operate in the ecosystem. Not only these revenues will not go in only for operators. And healthcare, manufacturing, transport will be, in our opinion, according to our projections, the verticals that will drive the most value to the ecosystem. What about Latin America? Latin America, and this is a different point of view, the productivity point of view, because we spoke about, at the beginning, we spoke about economic contribution, but most of that economic contribution will come from productivity boost. We all know that it is not a secret that Latin America has a productivity gap. Industries in Latin America are typically less productive than the same industries in the US, in the developed Asia, and in Europe. 5G will bring productivity because this technology will help different verticals or industries to offer better service in a most efficient way and a faster way, ranging from, of course, ICT, manufacturing. We don't have time to show some examples, but there are very interesting examples on how, for instance, technologies that were originally created for gaming, like virtual reality, can be applied to manufacturing, and one person can operate a complex machine from thousands of kilometers away. This is something that is not possible with 4G. This is exclusively a feature of 5G networks. The government also can benefit from this, because some of the processes, some security processes, public safety that the government brings can benefit from 5G. Of course, there are some. I know there are a lot of people from the law firms. There's the issue of privacy. Of course, this is something, and security, as Bargori mentioned. But in my opinion, regulation has to offer a service to innovation, because otherwise, if we put the regulation before the innovation, we will end up without all the benefits of the productivity gains. So the 5G economic output by 2035, it is estimated in over $3,000 billion for Latin America. This is from a study from the company Omdia, which is was released a couple of months ago. And to finish, I would like to summarize, which is the formal information or the official information from all the countries in Latin America. Of course, everybody's speaking about 5G, but so far, the first country to launch 5G services was Uruguay in 2019, mostly to connect homes with 5G at high speed, and where there is no necessary to deploy fiber optic. Colombia has granted permissions to use spectrum in 5 cities, and 3 companies are using this to not just to do technical testing, but also pre-commercial testing, which is also important. Both Chile and Peru are in the process of consultation for spectrum on how to prepare the bids and the conditions for spectrum in mid bands like 3.5 gigahertz and the higher bands or millimeter bands. Also, the Dominican Republic announced that they will be doing an auction in 2021, and Paigori mentioned that we can expect an auction in 2021 for Brazil. But the particular situation for Brazil is that the 3 operators, the 3 big operators in Brazil launched 5G using 4G spectrum. They have the authorization from Anatel to use 3 and 4G spectrum, which is some particular 5G arrangement, which is called dynamic spectrum sharing, which typically means that the spectrum can be shared between 3, 4, and 5G networks, and they can provide, and they are providing services, but in certain cities, not throughout the country. This will happen after the auction. So this is what this was a very fast journey and a very short story about mobile industry and 5G. I want to thank you again for the invitation. Below you have my information, and we will be happy to, if you want to visit the GSMA page. There are a lot of resources in our web page that are free to download, and from white papers, presentation, and position papers that will help understand and better construct a better world through mobile. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alejandro. That was a great presentation. We have this short time to this first round. It's around 10 to 15 minutes, and then we will come back. But I want to hear from you later on about your perspective on because 5G, you talked about where the money is, and I'm very curious about the roles that the telecommunication operators will play in this thing, to put it like in a functional financial way. Are they going to be wholesalers? Wholesalers? Are they going to be marketplaces? What is to come? These are questions that I would like to hear from you later on. Is that okay?
Okay, so you are giving me time to prepare. Good.
Yes. And now we move on to Andres, who will be covering Chile and the telecom agenda in Chile. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergio, and thank you for the Berkeley Global Society to giving us the opportunity to be here to discuss these very interesting matters. I will share my screen right now. I will try to cover three topics that, in my opinion, are very trendy at this moment. Can you see my okay, there we are. So three topics that I would like to discuss today. The first one is 5G. This is, of course, it's a very trendy at a Latin status, but also worldwide. So I would like to go deep. Chile is, I think, is one of the first countries in South America to launch the contest for 5G, and we will go into more detail on that. Then, in second place, and related with the previous point, is the infrastructure. I would like to address some points on the infrastructure required to develop 5G networks, which is critical. It's a critical asset for that. And if we got time, I would like to go into satellite broadband. It's a different innovation that is coming, and we are seeing in South America how this is a very hot topic. We're seeing big companies coming into our countries in order to provide this type of new services. It's a huge innovation, so I would like to go with that at the end. So 5G, and I totally agree with Alejandro on some of the statements that he made before. And it's very important to know that 5G is a technology that is aimed and oriented, at least at the beginning. In my opinion, it's oriented to service providers, to technology applications, and maybe to businesses, and not as much oriented to final users as you and me. Why is that? Because I mean, for streaming music, for watching videos, for watching YouTube videos, we don't need 10 times the speed that we have now with an efficient 4G network, right? For using our mobile devices, 4G it's enough. The thing is that 5G, of course, it's in my opinion, it's more oriented at the beginning. Maybe in 4 or 5 years from now, 5G connections will be required in order to go through social networks and stuff like that. But at this moment, maybe Internet of Things, of course, transport to utility. We are seeing how these automotive vehicles need, of course, faster speeds and faster data transfers. But it's very important to have that in mind. And in the case of Chile, and this is how I want to start with the Chilean case, this is something that the regulators had into mind when they started with their public consultations on October of last year. So this whole process was carried out by Subtel. Today, while we are talking, today, 18th of November, is the last day for companies to present their 5G offers. So probably a lot of people is running right now. A lot of technicians from the mobile operators here in Chile are running right now in order to get all the documents on times, because today at 12 is the expiration of the time for presenting offers. So how this process went through in the last months? So we had a first public consultation in October, yes, of 2019, and it was a very basic consultation. Basically, what the regulator asked the incumbents to let it know was about the type of services to be provided through the 5G networks and stuff like that. Then in January, a second consultation came from the regulator, and that contained the first official draft of the terms of reference that were going to rule all of these 5G contests. And we could see since January, we could see that the Chilean regulator designed this contest in a very particular way. We were used to have only one contest per technology. Now we have seen that there are 4 of them, one of them for each of the bands that are going to be available for 5G. So we have one for 700, one for AWS, one for 3.5, and one for 26 gigahertz. And then after that second consultation, we gave all of the companies the possibility to propose modifications to the terms of reference. On August, the final terms of reference were launched. And there were some particular contents on those terms of reference that make this 5G contest, and I want to highlight the word contest because Chile, it's one of the few countries in the world where spectrum is not auctioned, but it's just granted as a beauty contest, meaning that the company that presents the better technical project is the company that's going to be granted with the spectrum. Only if there is a technical tie between companies, a public auction, a bid for the spectrum will be triggered. So that's something that is very particular. But in any case, so these terms of reference were published on August, and the companies had only 3 months in order to submit their applications. And those 3 months are the ones that are due today. So tomorrow, because according to the terms of reference, tomorrow will be the day when Subtel opens the offers, and we will see if we have new companies entering for the 5G, if the current incumbents are all of them applying for 5G, and well, we will see. But what are the particularities of this beauty contest, of this contest? First of all, as I said before, in Chile we have a tradition that spectrum is granted, as I say, because of beauty contest. This is pure technical merits, right? But this particular contest, the 5G, contains some provisions that said that if a company is tied with another one, well, then a bid will be triggered. The thing is that out of a maximum of 100 points, if a company, for example, gets 95 points, any other company with a margin of 4 points will be considered to be tied in the top. So basically, what is happening for the second time in Chilean history is that, for example, if we have 4 companies tied with a difference of 4 points in the 5G spectrum contest, all of those companies will need to bid, and then the spectrum is not going to be free anymore. And then, of course, the company that puts more money on the table will win the spectrum. So that's because the second point there is it says that there will be an auction in case of a very, it's very likely to happen, because in 700 and 3.5 there will be a lot of demand. We presume that there will be a lot of demand, and of course companies will be tied, because to achieve the maximum technical points, it's very easy. Not easy, but it's accomplishable. It's very, it's not difficult to get for companies. So we will see what happens. A third point that I would like to highlight is warranties. We have seen that for this 5G contest, warranties has been very, very high, and this is something that has been criticized by some part of the industry, because it's kind of restrains new entrants to come to our country. We are talking about warranties that are up to $1 million. Each contest has 3 warranties. So the first warranty is the seriousness of the offer. For each contest, you have $1 million as a warranty of the offer, then a 30% warranty for the bidding process, and then you have a $16 million warranty for the seriousness of the technical project. So we are talking about $20 million just in warranties for each of the contests, and considering 5G that requires like almost at least 3 frequencies, we are talking about $45 million only in warranties, right? So that's a lot of money. And finally, I would like to highlight also that for the first time, the Chilean regulator included cybersecurity standards in the terms of reference for 5G. So this is something that we never saw before, and it's obviously highly appreciated. So companies must fulfill some cybersecurity requirements in order to apply for 5G spectrums. Or short rollout timings, it's also something that it's kind of complicated. For the 26 GHz band, which needs literally thousands of cells installed in our country, there will be a necessity for installing a lot of towers, thousands of towers. Rooftops could be used, but they are only giving 16 months to deploy this network. So that's nothing. If you consider that a nationwide network must be deployed, 16 months, it's a very short time. I don't know how many time do I have left, Sergio? Maybe 5 minutes?
Neither do I. I am taking notes of your presentation.
Okay.
but yeah,
try
maybe
to...
something like this. Please go on.
Okay. So related with the first point with this 5G, and we can go deeper on that if there are any questions. We have the infrastructure topic, and this is closely related. And here we are facing, and I know that other countries from South America are facing a kind of a problem, because at least in the Chilean case, the deployment of infrastructure has been kind of restrained because of our latest legislation. Our Congress passed a couple of laws over the last 7 years that makes the deployment of towers, for example, very difficult. I mean, if you want to build a tower for telecommunications, it will take you almost 2 years, which is very difficult. If you need to deploy networks fast, including fiber optics, I mean, using rooftops, using traffic lights, etc., as installation points, we really need, and we need regulators to consider that the authorization process must be much faster, as we are seeing today. I mean, we are talking about a critical asset for the implementation of 5G. 5G requires 5 times more infrastructure that the needs that 4G presented a couple of years ago. So we need that. I mean, I'm not talking about like getting through all of the environmental permits and all of that like as nothing. Of course, that companies must comply with that, but it's not possible to go through a process that take almost 2 years to authorize only 1 tower. So there must be a middle point on this. And that's why also we're seeing here in Chile, and knowing that in Peru and Colombia it's the same situation. We're seeing that companies are selling their infrastructure to infrastructure operators, because for them it's becoming very difficult to operate in these conditions. I will end at this point. I don't think that I have time to make a mention to this new technology that is coming, which is satellite broadband. This is completely new. Maybe we can say we can talk about this later, Sergio.
If you want just to introduce the topic, it'll be appropriate. I have a few questions for you on satellite and all these hard to reach regions in Chile and Peru. Maybe satellite would work for them. So
exactly.
Please.
The thing is that we are seeing over the last 2 years, and not only in Chile, and because I know that Peru also have the same situation, Panama, Costa Rica, and Bolivia. So there is a new technology. I mean, satellite broadband has existed for a couple of, for various years from now. But there is a new technology which is called like LEO constellations, which are low Earth orbit constellations, which are basically it's a network, a constellations of very small satellites that are very close to the Earth and that can provide very fast internet with very low latency to every single location in the planet at like 1 fraction of the cost of the original satellite broadband. We all have in our minds that satellite broadband is very expensive, but also it's very slow because the first satellites were like hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the Earth. This new technology is very close to us, and well, we see that at least in the case of Chile and now in Peru also, we have SpaceX, OneWeb and Omnispace requesting for licenses. Some of them already have their licenses, so they are entitled to start providing services, which is very innovative. These are top of the like high-end technology companies that are coming and using South America as their launching point. So it's something that worth mentioning.
Andres, thank you. That was a great presentation. I'm curious about hearing more of your opinion about this entry to barriers and all these financial challenges for new competitors. So we might come back to that later. I just got a question from one of our presenters himself, Carlos Baigorri. So you're mentioning the security requirements for the 5G auctioning in Chile, and he asked you for maybe you could send him the reference for this auctioning. He wants to start him for the Brazilian case, I believe. Okay.
Yeah, of course, no problem. These are
Nice.
public documents, so no problem.
Okay, thank you. That would be very helpful. And Julie, would you please take the floor?
Of course. So hello, everyone. I am Julie Galindo. I just wanted to say thank you, Sergio, and the Berkeley Global Society for this invitation. I am a UC Berkeley alumni, so for me, it's a pleasure to be here and from my field of practice and knowledge, just contribute to the growth of this relevant network. So just a clarification before I start my presentation. My opinions do not involve the company I work with. These are just personal reflections and analysis that I've done throughout my knowledge and my career. And I'll begin now. So when I was asked to prepare, and I'm actually going to set the timer because I want to be considerate all the time. When I was asked to prepare a 15-minute presentation on innovation and connectivity in the telecom sector, I initially thought it would be a good idea to walk you through all of the novel projects Colombian stakeholders are nowadays developing for that end. However, and if you allow me, I'd rather share with you by reflecting on a few government initiatives, how innovation and connectivity are both medium and goals materialized through the advances of interconnected and at times interdependent fields and sectors. So for this purpose and to address these considerations, I will begin with a simple question. And if you allow me, I will share my screen right now. So please confirm if you can see my screen now. Excellent. So innovation and connectivity in Latam, telecom sector, yes, it's essential, definitely, but is it the only one? I believe it isn't. I believe the connectivity in the telecom sector is interconnected and depends on other fields and advances thereof, which together all add to achieving connectivity and innovation in Latam. Of course, technology and coordination are at the core of this premise. To be able to briefly explain what I'm trying to address here, and I'm certain we can chat about this from diverse angles, I have chosen as examples one pilot case in Colombia of a project and the sandboxes the Colombian government is at the moment either in the process of implementing or opening for public consultation with the stakeholders. So just as a brief recap of sandbox for all of us to be on the same page. Sandbox is a figure and methodology used by government authorities, regulators normally, to mitigate uncertainty in controlled environments in which private sectors or public sectors, as we will see in the Colombian case, or even innovative public-private partnerships can develop and test initiatives, experiments under the regulator's oversight. Those sandboxes actually can help to learn about opportunities and risks innovations may carry, and to understand to what extent regulations are being stressed out because of the experiments that are needed normally based on technology, and to determine if new regulations are required or maybe non-regulation is required. So as I mentioned, I will now present 3 novel sandboxes and 1 extra initiative based on pilots, each one belonging to a specific field, but by no means isolated or disconnected from one another. So the first one we have here is the telecom sector, right? So I don't know if you have heard of this, but the Telecoms Regulatory Sandbox, it's led by the Communications Regulation Commission in Colombia, CRC. This sandbox is said to be the first of its kind. It was launched in September 2019. Fast forward to 14 months later, it is currently in its implementation stage. Although initially limited to connectivity projects, after public consultation, the purpose has been agreed by the CRC to allow the participation of any project that may address the better provision of telecommunication services, which is a broad approach, right? So we went from just connectivity to a broad approach. These, let's say, considerations from the authority were mainly considering the disconnection that there seems to be between the introduction of novel products and services in the market and the pace under which the review and update of regulatory frameworks takes place. In public policymaking, as we may already know, regulations tend to be reactive, especially in the telecommunications sector, and then they tend to be delayed whenever they are facing technological, social, and productive changes. So what they are trying to do here is to bring flexibility to the regulatory scheme impacting all innovation levels in this specific sector. Now, there is something important here. According to their responses during the public consultation, telecommunication companies would be interested in presenting innovative projects related to service provision that would address users' protection, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and privacy and personal data exploitation. So this is something to keep in mind, because as you can see, we are leaving the exclusive and traditional way of understanding telecommunications and opening the concept to which are those emerging technologies that intersect when we are trying to provide a better service. Second, here, we have the privacy sandbox. This is the first privacy sandbox in the region. I do not dare to present it as a regulatory sandbox, considering this term is only used at times for the authority. For further context, and just recently, the Data Protection Authority opened for consultation the first privacy sandbox focused on privacy by design and by default for artificial intelligence projects. In case you're interested, if anyone is interested, this sandbox is actually open for consultation until November 30th. The local EPA explained that this initiative follows the Global Privacy Assembly, where they are trying to create a framework for artificial intelligence and the intersection of projects related with privacy. Nonetheless, the DPA's initiative is limited exclusively to firms and projects related to e-commerce and marketing. So there is a question mark here. Now, if the telecommunications service providers are interested in using personal data for innovation and connectivity and others, think about the CRC sandbox we just saw and the reaction of the interested companies. Shouldn't they be allowed to participate and receive support from the DPA? Why is the DPA limiting the subject when there are other innovative public administration projects ongoing that could, at the end, benefit from this kind of innovation in public administration? Just a question. Third example. So we have this data box, which is focused on big data and analytics. This is led by the Ministry of Information and Communications Technology, MinICT here in Colombia. This sandbox is not a regulatory one. This aims to be a collaborative space where local public entities are allowed to experiment, test, and develop pilot projects with analytics and big data at their core. IoT projects are actually also part of this sandbox, or better called data box. In this data box, there are projects based on big data and analytics, aiming to the measurement of connectivity and access to internet service in certain municipalities of the country. So something that I questioned myself when I read this is, could this kind of projects be replicated by the telecom sector and private firms to help to have better information and evidence of connectivity and access conditions? Especially when thinking about the novel projects private firms will bring during CRC's sandbox, right? How to prevent fragmentation and allow the better use of tools and outcomes from big data projects developed by the public administration as an input towards innovation and connectivity in the telecom sector. How to build on what already exists. Fourth and final, 5G. The other panelists have already addressed what 5G is. I will just stop to say this is an incredible technology that will allow the connection of everything together, including machines, objects, and devices. That's why 5G is said to be key for the advances of emerging technologies, such as the Internet of Things. That's why 5G, together with these kind of technologies, have created some tensions with other fields, for example, privacy and security. If we consider, for example, IoT's invisibility factor when collecting personal data, and secondly, security concerns due to the expected faster pace and massive amounts of data collection, definitely there is an intersection of different authorities and different stakeholders interested in the advances and adoption of this technology. At the moment, 5G is currently not available in Colombia. As a way of context, in December 2019, MinICT launched the Action Plan for 5G Adoption. By April 2020, opened the process for granting permits for the use of radio electric spectrum for pilot testing using 5G mobile technology. Interested parties submitted their applications to get the permit for the use of the spectrum. As an example, just yesterday, Clara Colombia, supported by Nokia, announced its 5G pilot aimed to provide connectivity in sectors such as e-health, smart cities, and others. It is not clear, however, how MinICT is working with the CRC to advance in 5G projects. Due to local regulation, MinICT is in charge, amongst others, in the surveillance and spectrum attribution. However, CRC is in charge of regulations and attentions to the application of such technologies. It would seem, as an initial glance, that 5G pilots should somewhat be related or take part at the CRC's Sandbox initiative. Why are we fragmenting this kind of authorities' work in something that at the end will relate to experiments and trials in the sector? Finally, this is just a slide for you to have a glance of how interconnected and interdependency can look like. So if we go to the left side of the slide, you will see 4 initiatives. None is independent from the other. However, different authorities are paying attention to them. Definitely, telecom sector and other interconnected sectors can learn from each other, right? So what we have in the middle is how these 4 proposals actually respond to public administration innovation. But this is not only innovation from the public side, it's also a stakeholders innovation. There is an important buy-in here to allow this kind of technologies and projects to advance and move forward. However, can we actually move forward if we disconnect one from the other? If you can see in the middle of the slide, I tried to create something that will show you how interconnected and interdependent these are. Technology is messy. Technology is complex. It's really hard to try to address a project that involves many different kinds of technology just from one side. So for example, if you see here, and if we take 5G as an example, 5G is related to privacy, to infrastructure, to IoT. AI, for example, is related to big data, to privacy, to infrastructure, again, because, for example, the OECD has already said if a country doesn't have connectivity that is broad and that is enough, there is no place for them to actually have a national AI strategy at this point. So what can we do with this? There is something that the OECD has already called Colombia to work on, and it's the whole of government approach. This means that there can be opportunities for horizontal coordination, integration, to avoid fragmentation in public policies that relate to innovation, connectivity, and above all, digitalization in the country. Why is this important? Because the whole of government approach actually helps governments to work on complex matters that normally are surrounded with uncertainty and unknowability, right? In this case, this is our status. At this point, we are not aware of which are the potential and possible uses of IoT, 5G, AI. So in this changing environment, the whole of government approach appears as something that governments should be paying attention to. What I'm saying of the OECD already had mentioned this to Colombia, and I'm taking Colombia as an example just because I had the opportunity to study the different examples. This actually was mentioned by the OECD during the reviews of digital transformation going digital in 2019. When the OECD was studying levels of connectivity, innovation, and so on, the OECD actually told Colombia, you need to develop a national digital strategy for the country. You need to work cohesively, you need to work avoiding fragmentation between different national authorities. And you need to do it through a multi-stakeholders process. And furthermore, beyond creating a national digital strategy that would cover the digitalization process, which actually encompasses innovation and connectivity, it also said you need to have better interoperability among public institutions. So at this point, if different approaches to matters that are interconnected continue to be worked in silos, are we going to achieve the greater goal of better innovation and connectivity in the country? That's a question mark. Furthermore, and to close my presentation, I want to make a brief comment on the work that public authorities are doing through sandboxes. And it is digital innovation that operate across two or more traditional sectoral areas may be difficult for regulatory sandboxes. And this is actually the case for telecommunications, where there are so many topics interconnected that impact innovation and connectivity that you need to find a way to overcome these kind of challenges. So one way of doing it actually is involving more than one industry or one ministry, or by developing an overarching strategy for regulatory sandboxes that cuts across sectors and ministries. This approach was actually adopted by Germany regulatory sandboxes strategy, where it acknowledged that different technology-based and complex matters may need the participation of more than one authority, which is what we are seeing in Colombia. Better coordination, better collaboration, and most likely a whole of the government approach could contribute to stop the fragmentation and allow a digital strategy to move forward through, for example, regulatory sandboxes in the country. Thank you.
Julie, thank you. That was a very nice presentation on a very different topic. We have been hearing a lot about regulations and regulatory frameworks, and you're bringing us these interesting initiatives from Colombia that are not deregulating, but they're sort of creating space and room for creativity and innovation. So I'll come back to you later, and I'm really interested in learning more about this multi-stakeholders approach and even this German strategy that you mentioned. Maybe they found a solution. We're facing something similar around here in every new initiative related to sandboxes in Brazil. So this has been identified, but it hasn't been solved either. So thank you, Jacqueline. Hola. Hello, it's finally your time.
Hola.
Last but not
finally.
least, nice
Yes.
to hear from you. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Sergio, and all my colleagues for the wonderful presentations. I'm going a little bit out of topic because I'm taking into account indigenous communities. So, well, you know, I'm from Mexico. We have a multicultural country, a very diverse multicultural country, and very rich in these indigenous cultures. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint. And I want you to take a really good and close look to this image I'm showing here. The first thing that comes to mind when we talk about communities or indigenous communities in Mexico is maybe the lack of opportunities. No, today we are going to talk about this sector, this important sector that is telecom and broadcasting in Mexico, and how this telecom and broadcasting sector has going too far and going, well, importantly, too far to the communities in Mexico, no? What do you see here is a man in the field, but he's holding something. He's holding a cell phone. It's a very strange or rare image, but it's not so rare anymore, no? For most of us, having a cell phone is as natural as breathing, no? But do we understand the transcendence and the importance of having a cell phone, for example, here in the field, many miles away from a city or from a civilization? I'm not so sure with all these fast changes and the constant actualization and all the evolution of technologies that we take or process this image, no? So first of all, we have, if we are going to talk about communities, indigenous communities in Mexico, I want to let you know that we have 68 indigenous cultures in Mexico, among all the country, and very, very diverse and rich in all of their customs. So despite they constitute our identity as multicultural country that represents 21.5% of the population in Mexico, it's well known that these communities in many cases are affected by poverty, by margination, by the lack of opportunities, including something really important for us here today, the limitations to access information and connectivity. So we are going to talk about indigenous. So to talk about indigenous, who are the communities, the indigenous communities that we take into account in the telecom sector? Any person who auto-describes her or himself as an indigenous and auto-recognizes as one is considered an indigenous person or a member of a community, of an indigenous community. So the legislation nowadays takes into account this auto-description and auto-recognition of members of indigenous communities and embraces the fact that there is a need to come to this sector, to this land where these communities live, and to access them, to make available this access and connectivity to them, and get to accomplish and to accomplish a new championship, to say so, no? So now that we can call this indigenous and these members of the community, we have to connect this concept of telecom to the indigenous communities. And nowadays, and since 2014, there was a new act published here in Mexico. That's the Ley Federal de Telecomunicaciones y Radiodifusiones, the federal, the Telecommunications and Broadcasting Act in Mexico. And it was a great shift of paradigms here in Mexico because this act takes into account persons with disabilities, indigenous communities, and also marginalized groups among the country. And one of the main purposes of the IFT here, that's the authority in telecom, is promoting the social, the political, the economic, and the cultural development in Mexico. The IFT takes place or has its origin in 2014, And it's an autonomous entity or an autonomous organism in the government that regulates the telecom and the broadcasting sector in Mexico. And also for the benefit or the main purposes for the benefit of the users and audiences in Mexico without this discrimination. And that's very important because since 2011, with the human rights and also a shift of paradigms in the human rights legislation, that there is a prohibition, a total prohibition in regarding the discrimination. And so in 2011 and in 2014, the legislation, well, in our whole country has this red light always on, that they have to protect and to avoid any kind of violation of the human rights, including the human rights regarding the indigenous communities. So the IFT here has an important role in this matter, because for a first look, we have to say, well, it maybe has nothing to do the indigenous communities to the telecom sector, but it has all to do to be related in the communities, indigenous communities with the telecom sector. So the core, as I said, of the IFT is to promote this social, or among the others, the social development in Mexico. So this is a big advance in telecom sector. And if you remember the first image that I showed you with this man with a cell phone, that is the development, and that is a big step in our country to win some infrastructure in the communities that are far away from the civilization, or far away, not from the civilization, but from the cities, no? Where we have, well, limited access to a connectivity, and we have not so many lack of opportunities, no? So this creation of this new act had the purpose to benefit all the Mexicans. This is the reason why is this main purpose, to make access available to all the population, including the indigenous communities. Also, including broadband network, as well as an antitrust regulation. And then these communities have an important role. No? They are taking into the account, and they are making themselves more and more important to the telecom decisions and telecom agenda, because the infrastructure in telecom and broadcasting for the competitors and for the agents in the sector is important to go all around the country, not only one city or the main cities in one country, you know, just all around the city, no? So a larger number of users and audiences could access to telecom and broadcasting services with better conditions. And so also, if you see this image that I showed you on your left, is also a member of an indigenous community in the Zócalo, that's the center of our Mexico City, and she has also a cell phone. No, that's not so rare anymore, and the telecom and the broadcasting services are key to improve social and economic and cultural and political decisions, no, and development. So now we have all the regulation, and we know that the indigenous communities are taking into account in this new legislation, but we always have problems, or we can't avoid having a dispute or a problem regarding the application of the legislation to a concrete in the specific scenario. No? Here I can tell you that one indigenous association that's called Telecomunicaciones Indígenas Comunitarias had claimed to the judiciary that they were discriminated because they were forced to pay some rights because of the concession of the use of a concession radio spectrum for the provision of community cell phone service. And they claimed that they had no infrastructure and they have no money, and resources to pay those rights, but they have all the other infrastructure to use this concession radio spectrum. And so they claimed that that the country, the government, should exempt them of the payment of these rights. And so this case, this claim, got into the Supreme Court. And in the Supreme Court, they ruled that the government and the IFT should apply a pro homine principle. That means that they should protect the entire community and protect all the human rights, including the human rights in the era of telecommunications and broadcasting. So they are privileging, or they should, regarding this ruling, they should privilege and protect the rights of these indigenous people and the communities to access the telecommunication. No? And the second main idea of this ruling was that they could, in fact, exempt or not pay these rights, but they indeed could acquire, operate, administer communication media to exercise those rights, that connectivity, and this acquisition and this operation should be under the conditions of non-discrimination, and by adopting also the measures or the needed measures to respect and protect the cultural diversity in that media. So these two entities, these two associations, that's that here on the right of the slide, Redes por la Universidad, Equidad y Sustentabilidad, and Telecomunicaciones Indígenas Comunitarias, they claimed and they won. So why is this important? It's because these claims and these red lights that provokes that the legislation not only takes into account the natural needs of the sector, but also they have to take into account also the communities that have that lack of access, and that with the evolution of what we are discussing here, the 5G and the Internet of the Things, we are going to make an evolution, and a really fast evolution in the telecom sector regarding the communities, the indigenous communities. And well, here I show you one of the news, that won this association, that this indigenous community offers internet and satellite telephone services. That's not so that in 10 years ago it was not so common, but nowadays it's really common and important that indigenous communities can offer these telecom services and can be authorized throughout a concession to provide these services. And I'm running out of time, I know, but I couldn't left out our enemy, the COVID-19. So I put here last but not least. And regarding telecom, indigenous communities, and IFT, I would like to show you what the IFT is making for these indigenous communities during this pandemic. No, the IFT, as an authority in the telecommunications sector, is making available on the internet information materials in several indigenous languages on the use of telecommunications during this contingency to inform these communities what's the virus, how can we protect against the virus, and all the essential and important information regarding this pandemic. Here you can see, well, I think no one understands what that image says. It's in the language Mazahua. That's one indigenous community in the center of Mexico. And the IFT makes available in many different indigenous languages. So we are combining efforts of indigenous communities in their need to access information and to be connected with the world, not only with their city, just also with the world. And the bridge that is the IFT and the telecommunications sector to make this possible. So I think, I hope I didn't speak too fast, but well, I hope this makes a great panel, and we can also be talking about these problems in indigenous communities, because all of what we are talking are going to have a repercussion in indigenous communities all around the world. No? So thanks again for the invitation, and well, that's all for me.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you for sharing this interesting agenda of IFT. IFT has a long history of influencing developmental policies for the telecommunications sector in the region. IFT and COFETEL, its previous version, and
yes,
it's also it is also very influential in many of the policies that our countries adopted, and set the agenda for many regulatory ideas. So it's nice to see what's going on in this developmental side. I would like to hear from you later. You talked a lot about the importance of the telecommunication as an enabler for the indigenous communities. I would like to know what are the uses that you see that these communities have with the telecommunications. Is it tourism? Is it educational? So this is something that I would like to hear from you. And
perfect,
because we're running out of time, we heard so much from so many and learned so much from you. I would like to come back to all of our speakers, and I left them with some ideas that they could comment on and just to expand their comments. So please, Alejandro, Andres, Julie, Jacqueline, and maybe I'll start with Julie because I know she has a meeting in a bit. I wanted to learn a bit more about this sandboxes ideas and whatever you wanna mention. Thank you.
Sure. So I would say that, for example, the German initiative of having like a national strategy for sandbox, it's precisely to continue the collaborative way of doing public administration, right? And that also answers as well to tendencies of new public management, which at the end, the whole point is how traditional public administration tasks can use innovation, because remember, innovation is not only technology, innovation is new, novel ways of doing things. So in this case, the German government decided to create, and I think this was 2018 or 2019, I don't remember the year correctly, but it's basically having a national strategy of sandboxes. The idea of that is to have different ministries, different authorities participating in issues that are normally highly complex and that are normally interconnected, right? So that's why I think what we saw today in my presentation are a few examples of in which opportunities you have so many interconnections and interdependencies that at the end, limiting such a broad sector as a telecom sector to access to just one authority through one sandbox actually limits the way of understanding the innovation that private firms may be trying to bring to the table, right? So that would be my final comment on that point.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Very kind of you. Alejandro, what about the role of these telcos for the future of 5G?
Well, there is something that I didn't mention because of the lack of time, but one thing that is important is that 5G, even though it comes from the evolution of the mobile networks, it integrates different types of infrastructure, from fiber optics to satellite to unlicensed spectrum communication. So the operator will be definitely in the center, but the whole ecosystem will be part of the solution. As I told you, and Andres also mentioned that he believes that, and we agree on that, the most of the business will come from B2B operations. There are B2B2C, which is business between the operator and companies, and also to create services to the end customer. This will lead us to a complex ecosystem in which the operator will have to deploy different sort of services, and there is something which is technical, which is, but maybe something that you heard of, which is network slicing. Network slicing means that the network can be divided into slices with different features, because it's totally different, the network facility that you need to connect a driverless car than to connect the sensors for smart cities. So the operator will develop different sorts of connectivity types to different applications, and that will lead to different business models. Wholesale, an operator can sell some parts or facilities of the network as a wholesale services, not only to companies that will transform this into another services, but between companies, because it makes no sense to replicate all the infrastructure in every site. This is not economically reasonable. There is no business case that will support that. So we will see, in our opinion, a wider range of new relationships between the ecosystem, and this is something very interesting to study and to take into account, because this will lead to new companies that will be offering services based on the infrastructure.
Thank you, Alejandro. Andres, so we talked about the cost of 5G, yeah, and you have a very concrete example of bidding for 5G in Chile. Well, so how do you think you saw arrangements between among the companies? What were the arrangements to win this bids? What do you see the negotiations like?
I mean, no negotiations at all. I mean, as far as I know, the companies are going to apply like completely separate. The thing is that, as I was saying, it's strange because according to our legislation, I mean, the access to spectrum is free, right? And it must be non-discriminatory. And then you have this contest which impose. I mean, warranties are of course part of a bidding process, because it's necessary to understand that I mean, this is serious, and if a company requests a spectrum and then doesn't comply with their technical project, of course that there must be a sanction for that. But when you establish warranties as entry warranties that are so high, it's kind of difficult to promote and to attract investments. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, from foreign companies, because of course that those warranties are going to be freeze for 3 years, and that's a lot of money that is out of the cash box from entities. I mean, we're talking about $60 million that are going to be frozen for 3 years. So maybe it's better to just impose some application fees, maybe a modification on the laws or regulations or local regulations. But as far as I mean, from my point of view, to establish warranties, starting warranties and entry warranties as high as the ones that we have right now, make it very difficult for new entrants and to investors to come to, I mean, for this specific contest. There must be something in the middle. I can't recall right now, but there must be a solution, because otherwise there's no much incentive to foreign companies to come and to encourage competition and to encourage new competitors to the incumbents.
Oh, thank you. That is a very sensitive topic. These barriers to entry, they're always challenging, and many of our countries have set their oligopolistic structure with just a few companies competing for at least this first part of the telco stream. So let's see now from Jacqueline, about the developmental matters, and how do you see the telecommunications playing this enabling role in the communities in Mexico?
It's a really important agenda to be an enabler in the indigenous communities. So it's so important that in the indigenous communities, they can call a taxi with an infrastructure of telecommunications. They can be in touch with their relatives living in the United States or in another country, aspect that 10 or maybe 10 or 9 years ago, it wasn't possible. So it's as simple as an example as to call a taxi, to have their own broadcast in the radio as an indigenous community, and to have their own radio program in the frequency. So that's really important, and as a big transcendence in the agenda of the telecommunications sector, because it makes the life in the communities much more easier and much more connected to the information and to actual and real and daily information, and not as so many years ago that they were totally ignorant in the best way of the word, no? Ignorant about the day-to-day information and news and other important decisions that repercute in their communities. So it's the main examples that I see is to call a taxi, to be in touch with their families with a cell phone, and to express and to transmit their culture and the information and customs throughout a broadcasting program. Weather conditions. To know weather conditions, etc.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Well, I guess we come to the end of this panel. Obama, this is your take. I really want to thank Andres, Julie, Alejandro, Jacqueline, Carlos Bagorri, and BGS itself for opening and giving us room for this webinar. Obama.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, everyone, for talking about those various topics. Please have a look to our agenda, because we will have now set a series of 20 days, 25 days of event almost every day. But what I would like to say about what I've learned today, it's very interesting to see that those technologies, telecom, G5, at the end of the day, we have something in common, that those technologies can help the next generations, can help us to have a better life, and also maybe to address the biggest issues that our generation are facing. It may be with people in Mexico, but also in Africa, all over the world. So I do believe that as experts, as lawyers, we can also bring something about the moral, about the humanity in those technological issues. So once again, thank you, Sergio. Thank you everyone for joining us. Feel always welcome to contacting us to jump in another roundtable. We will be always glad to welcome you. So have a good day and hope to see you soon in Latam series and other series. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Tchau, Oban.
Bye-bye.
Obrigado. Gracias. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Sí.
Gracias.
Thank you, Sergio.
Ciao.
Bye.
Tchau, tchau. Abraço. Tchau.
Edita, if you want, you can leave the. Oh, now I'm almost alone. Edita, can you hear me?
Yes, I need to stop.